Section 2 topics: Legislation, 1080 and PAPP. Learning objectives. Legal requirements. Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981. Occupational Health and Safety Regulations 2017. Duty of care, common law duty and negligence. And section summary. Section 2.1 Learning objectives. This section provides legislative information on how to comply with the supply, providing advice and use of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products in Victoria. The key concepts in this section include how 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products are either registered with or under permit from the APVMA. Commercial manufacturers of 1080 pest animal bait products can only supply 1080 to retailers that have AgSafe 1080 accreditation, and the retailers must keep records of retail activity for 3 years. On successful completion of this section, participants will be able to explain how to comply with the supply and use of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products, and explain the importance of complying with the product label and safety data sheets. Retailers must have AgSafe 1080 and PAPP accreditation before they can be supplied with 1080 bait products. Section 2.2 Legal requirements. The manufacture, supply and use of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products is governed by a range of different Victorian and Commonwealth Acts, which include the Agricultural and Veterinary Chemicals Control of Use Act 1992, Victoria, and the Agricultural and Veterinary Chemicals Code Act 1994, the Commonwealth, the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981 for Victoria, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act 2004, Victoria. The only legal 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products for users are APVMA registered products and perishable baits that are manufactured using 1080 aqueous solution and supplied under a permit from the APVMA. AgSafe accredited premises selling shelf-stable or perishable baits do not need a licence from Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. Commercial manufacturers of 1080 pest animal bait products can only supply 1080 pest animal bait products to retailers that have AgSafe 1080 and PAPP accreditation. It is illegal for anyone, including end users, to manufacture a shelf-stable or perishable 1080 pest animal bait product without having a manufacturing licence from the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. It is a legal requirement that all persons using 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products in Victoria use those products in accordance with the 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait product labels and the directions for the use of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products in Victoria in order to comply with the control of use legislation, and the relevant safety data sheets in order to comply with OHS legislation. Any advice you provide on the use of 1080 and PAPP must be accurate and in accordance with the label, safety data sheets and directions for use. It is illegal to provide advice that results in another person committing an offence under the control of use legislation. Agricultural and Veterinary Chemicals Code Act 1994, the AgVet Code. 1080 and PAPP are declared as restricted chemical products under the AgVet Code. Retailers must only supply a restricted chemical product to a person who is authorised to use the product. Section 2.3 Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981. In Victoria, the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981 and its associated regulations are administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. The Act requires retailers of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products to keep records of retail activity and to sell, supply and store in accordance with the existing requirements for Schedule 7 poisons under the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Act 1981 and the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Regulations 2006, with records of retail activity to be kept for 3 years. To only sell or supply 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products to appropriately licensed persons. To not sell or supply any Schedule 7 poison to a person who is under the age of 18 years. To supply baits only in the supplier's original and unopened packs. And to store all Schedule 7 poisons in a storage facility that is not accessible to the public, unless access to that area or facility is under the personal supervision of the retailer or a person acting under the retailer's direction. Please refer to the AgSafe Code of Practice supplement for further information. The requirements. Section 2.4 Occupational Health and Safety. Occupational health and safety legislation in Victoria is designed to provide for the health and safety of all persons in all workplaces in order to prevent injury and illness associated with work-related injuries. Employers, employees, manufacturers, installers and suppliers all have responsibilities to avoid workplace injuries and disease. It is not acceptable that injuries and death caused through work are inevitable. There is a duty of care principle in the Occupational Health and Safety Act 2004 for employers to provide a safe place of work for employees. Managing health and safety is a shared responsibility. The law also requires that employees take reasonable care to protect their own health and safety as well as the health and safety of others at work. Risk management process. The WorkSafe Victoria Hazardous Substances Compliance Code outlines a risk management process to help employers comply with their duties under the OH&S Act and OHS regulations. For example, identify hazards associated with hazardous substances in the workplace, assessing, where necessary, any associated risks if unsure of appropriate risk controls. Controlling risks associated with hazardous substances in the workplace, and monitoring, reviewing and, where necessary, revising risk controls. OHS versus GHS classification. Hazardous substance, as defined in the Victorian OHS Regulations 2017, means a substance that satisfies the criteria for hazard classification in the GHS, except for Category 5 acute toxicity oral, dermal, Category 3 skin corrosion and irritation, serious eye damage and eye irritation Category 2B, and Category 2 aspiration hazard. GHS refers to the globally harmonised system of classification and labelling of chemicals, which provides harmonised criteria for classification, physical, health and environmental. There are 9 pictograms under GHS. These represent physical, health and environmental hazards. GHS information is shown on labels and SDS. For example, GHS signal words hazard or warning. Hazard and precautionary statements. GHS 1080 pest animal bait products. 1080 pest animal bait products are not classified as hazardous by GHS criteria, except for the aqueous 1080 solution inside the capsules for canid pest ejectors, which have the GHS signal word warning and the following classification criteria shown in the table. GHS classification of PAPP pest animal bait products. PAPP pest animal bait products are classified as hazardous by GHS criteria and have the GHS signal word warning and the following classification criteria shown in the table. Section 2.5 Duty of Care, Common Law Duty and Negligence. Duty of Care. The general duty of care in the OH&S Act is based on principles built up under common law. Duty of care places into a legal form a moral duty to anticipate possible causes of injury and illness, and to do everything reasonably practicable to remove or minimise these possible causes of harm. Employers, managers, supervisors, employees and all other relevant people, including visitors to workplaces, all have obligations to exercise a duty of care in relation to health and safety in the workplace. In the event of a serious accident, the person, duty holder, must show that it was not reasonably practicable to do more than what was done and that they had taken all reasonable precautions under the circumstances. Not complying with the Act is considered an offence and can result in a fine or the issuing of an improvement notice or a prohibition notice. A breach of the Act does not have to result from an accident or a person being injured at work. For example, a breach could be for not storing 1080 pest animal bait products in a secure and safe manner, allowing unauthorised persons to have access to the bait products. Negligence. These claims occur when an employee makes a claim for damages through a civil court for injuries arising from an employer's failure to take reasonable care. The court, however, recognises that the actions of an employee may contribute to an injury and may reduce the size of a damages payout for contributory negligence. Under common law, there must be damage to a person or property before action can be taken. The OH&S Act statute law is preventative, where there is no need for an injury to occur before enforcement action can be taken to have an unsafe situation fixed. Employees who fail in their duty of care can also be fined. Section 2, Summary. Legal 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products for users are APVMA registered products and perishable baits manufactured under an APVMA permit. Commercial manufacturers of 1080 and PAPP pest animal bait products can only supply 1080 to retailers that have AgSafe 1080 accreditation. Any advice you provide as a seller of 1080 and PAPP must be accurate and in accordance with the label, safety data sheets and directions for use. As a seller of 1080 and PAPP pest animal product baits, you can only sell these products to authorised persons. 1080 and PAPP pest animal product baits are Schedule 7 dangerous poisons and must be stored away from public access. Retailers must keep records of retail activity for 3 years.